Hello, everybody. Good to see you. How are you guys doing? Are y'all having fun? Can you see me in there? So, here's what we're doing. We are looking at Module 34 in AP Macro, and we are looking at the Phillips Curve. This is the last graph you need to know, so we're going to talk about it. And the graph simply is the relationship between inflation and unemployment. Can you guess who came up with the idea of the Phillips curve? Sam? You're right, Mr. Phillips. And he noticed, look at this graph, and that you've got dates, 59 here, 58 here, and you can see a downward movement that whenever in 68 there's high inflation, there's low unemployment. In 61 there's low inflation and higher unemployment. Same thing at 58. And so what you see is a downward relationship, and that's because when the inflation's going up, you know that, when the inflation's going up, people are spending money, they're hiring, they're expanding, but after a while, of course, it gets to them. So this is the Phillips curve. It's pretty simple, and the relationship is pretty clear that when employment is low, inflation's high. Notice that we always use the word unemployment, not employment. So always remember, it's the relationship between inflation and unemployment. And the reason is that, and you know that, you can't measure employment. We can look at the workforce, but it varies. But we remember unemployment is the number of people who are looking for work, able to work but not working, plus the people who are working. So that's the labor force. Well, the unemployment is the percentage. So people are trying to find a job, they can't get one. In inflation, everybody can get a job because everybody's spending money like a sailor on a holiday. But then in the end, when inflation goes back down, we're at 2 and 3%. Unemployment is high. Okay? So, but I want you to see something else, and that is that it relates, and this is what AP wants you to do. Here is how it relates to the aggregate supply. So if there is an increase in demand, look over here in the supply curve. Here's long-run aggregate supply, short-run aggregate supply, aggregate demand. Let's say demand increases and goes to the right. And you remember, everything to the right is good. Y'all remember that? I taught you that. Everything to the right is good. Everything to the right is good. However, there's one exception, and that's this. If we're right here and inflation is here, and the demand goes this way, there's higher in price level, which is inflation, then we're going to go here, which means to the left is good. Y'all see that? So this is a difference. Instead of saying to the right is good and to the left is bad, these are mirrored. And so you will see that when this goes this way, this goes this way. So if I draw an aggregate supply right over here, and it's got a long-run aggregate supply, short-run aggregate supply, aggregate demand. You put this right here, it's going to be right here. But if the economy moves to the right, and we have a new long-run aggregate supply, everything moves to the right, this is going to move to the left. Okay? But I want you to understand something, and you'll see it in just a minute. Let me show you that if there's a shock to the system, then it's going to cause a shift. So if something bad happens, a negative supply shock, it will move the whole thing up. In other words, to the right, which is bad. So actually, it's going this way. Now, here's what I want you to remember. This is real simple. It's all S's. Supply shift, short-run Phillips curve shift. But a demand shift just slides across the line. So if the demand increases, here's the demand, and it goes to here, that will slide along the line. But if the supply moves, short run or long run supply moves, that's going to shift the whole thing. So supply shift, short run Phillips curve shift. Have y'all got that? Supply, short run shift. They both shift. If the demand shifts on the aggregate supply, that just slides up and down the curve. Okay? Okay, I got to do one more thing here, and I want you to see this. Are y'all having fun? Okay, so here's inflation. Okay. This is called the short run Phillips curve. Can you guess why it's called the short run Phillips curve? Can anybody guess? Yeah, you're right. Because in the long run, it's going to end up right back where it is. Because there is a natural rate of employment. So this unemployment rate is the natural rate. Remember, there's structural and frictional unemployment, so it never gets to zero. So there's always going to be, in the economy, eventually, it's going to come back down to here. So while it may move up and down here, and even shift up and down here, in the long run, it's going to end up right back where it is. Now, what we're doing right now, I'm kind of interested in, because we've just shut down the economy, and so unemployment is going all the way down. And the Fed and the monetary are dumping, federal policy, fiscal and monetary, are dumping trillions. It could be 8 or 10 trillion by the time it's over with, into the economy. I'm wondering what's going to happen to inflation. See, according to this, when unemployment is here, well, it's moving up here. And when it gets up, it's going this way, it's increasing. When it increases, is inflation going to stay low? What happens when you stop an economy because of the coronavirus, amazing stop, and then you add to that trillions of dollars dumped in. And if you remember, we've seen this before, put it right here. The money times velocity is equal to price times the GDP. Well, when you increase the money, you're going to increase the price. So I'm curious as to see what's going to happen. So here's that Phillips curve with the unemployment rate. So we're going to see what happened. Here is another picture of how the curve has shifted. Here was a curve, here was a curve, here was a curve, here was a curve. This is the unemployment rate, and it's all over the place. But you can see that it shifted. It didn't slide. That means there were supply shocks. And here's a scatter graph that kind of gives you a picture of it. Okay, so that's about all we need to know about this, that the Phillips curve is short run, in the short run, but in the long run, it's going to come back to here. And just like in the short run, you might have short run aggregate supply and aggregate demand, but in the long run, you're going to end up with long run aggregate supply, which, by the way, is going to be here. They're going to be the same spot. And if one moves up, the other one moves up. So, for example, if we go into recession and we move here, this is going to go, if we're in recession, it's going to move to here. Except it'll do a shift and end up right back here. We'll talk about the details later. You will see on your AP exam, I'm going to bet this, you will see a Phillips curve and an aggregate supply curve. So we'll talk more about this later. I just want to make sure that you've got an understanding of it. Okay, so read your module 37. You'll have an assignment to do. And we're almost done here, guys. This week we'll be finished, and we'll start reviewing for the exam. Okay, thanks, guys, and I will see y'all in the Zoom. Bye.